I have lost faith in Goodreads ever considering the idea that they should separate mystery and thriller into separate genre categories for the Goodreads Choice Awards. And so I've taken it upon myself today to create my own mystery long list. Last year, I did a predictions video for the mystery thriller category, and I learned some things. I realized, one, why I even never really cared about the Goodreads Choice Awards, and two, that 80% or more of the category every single year is made up of thrillers alone. And as someone who doesn't really read thrillers but reads mysteries, I started to connect the dots. A little bit of history. The mystery genre came to fruition in the 19th century thanks to authors like Wilkie Collins, Edgar Allan Poe, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and it really found its own path in the 20th century thanks to the Queens of Crime and other Golden Age writers. And from that, the thriller subgenre became more defined and eventually became its own genre that many people love. It's a great gateway genre, in my opinion, where if people haven't really been reading for a long time and suddenly they become voracious readers, usually it's the thriller genre to thank, and I am so happy that it exists, even though it's not for me. And even though I think at this point we recognize that mystery and thrillers attract different readers, have different tropes, different plot structures, even have different marketing terms and title designs, cover designs, they are separate in so many different ways, and yet Goodreads still forces them together, and it's the mystery genre that gets shafted because thriller readers are among the biggest, most active groups on Goodreads. It makes sense that thrillers have the numbers that they do when it comes to star ratings and just popularity in general, but that's not really fair to mystery readers to force them to kind of compete with thriller readers when they're vying for their favorite book to be the winner on the long list. So now that you know my origin story, let's jump into the long list for my fake Goodreads mystery category. I'm going to do it in rapid fire, putting on my Goodreads hat, trying to get into their head, and then I'll deep dive into the books that I would have on my own personal long list if I had my own awards. But in order to truly pretend to be Goodreads, I have to acknowledge all of the rules and qualifications that they have in place for the Choice Awards every single year. And one of the biggest rules is that the book in question has to have at least a 3.5 average star rating. So if a book has 3.49 star rating, not making the cut. It doesn't matter how popular the author is. If that title is below the 3.5 threshold, it's not making the Goodreads Choice Awards. One author that does a great job of exemplifying this rule, who's super popular, but some of his books just don't get the ratings to succeed, would be Riley Sager. If his books make 3.5 or higher, you know for a fact it's going to be on the Goodreads Choice Awards for a mystery thriller. But if it's below, sorry, Riley, it's not going to make it. And his most recent title, With a Vengeance, well under 3.5 stars. It's not going to make the cut. The next rule would be the publication timeline. It shifts depending on the calendar year and when the previous Goodreads Awards were announced, but this time it is November 13th, 2024 to November 11th, 2025. So if a book was published in November of 2024 on the 13th, 14th, 15th, or later, it technically does qualify for the 2025 Goodreads Choice Awards, and it has a year to gather ratings, get people interested in it. So obviously that gives it an advantage, but it's not very often that we see a book published in 2024 or the year before making the current list. A good author, as an example for this rule, would be someone like Nita Prose. Her book, The Maid, and then the sequel to that, The Mystery Guest, were both published the year before. I think both of these books were published in November or December, giving them nearly a year to get enough ratings to be impressive enough to beat out a thriller and make it into the mystery thriller category. A third rule that I absolutely hate, because it of course makes it really hard for a genre blend to be acknowledged in the mystery thriller category, and I have some thoughts about that, but it's fine, would be that each book can only be featured in one genre category. So a fantasy mystery, not going to be featured in the mystery thriller category, so on and so forth in that fashion. Sci-fi mystery, or even I guess like a romantasy right now, it has its own category. There was this question of, will it be in the romance category, will it be in the fantasy category, and there was enough people who were frustrated about that finally Goodreads created its own category for that genre blend. The only exception to that, where a book could be featured in 2 categories, would be if the second category isn't genre specific. So the debut novel category, or the newest edition that makes no sense would be the audiobook category. And what's really annoying for Goodreads is that they said that they base it off of their Goodreads data and Audible data. So they're not considering Libro FM, which is a more ethical option when you're buying audiobooks. And they're also not considering Libby or Hoopla, where most people get their audiobooks, I'm sure. And when using Goodreads, I never give any type of specific format. I always choose the paperback or the hardbook option, even if I did listen on audio. So it's not going to be realistic data. And so I think it's a really dumb category. And finally, an author can be featured twice in one category, but those books can't be a part of the same series. So if an author does publish 3-4 books in a year, like someone like Frida McFadden, then you need to make sure that these are all standalones, or at least only one book is a part of a series and none of its companions can be optioned at the same time in the same year. Okay, getting into my fabricated Goodreads long list for a mystery category, we're going to get the veterans out of the way, the obvious choices. Of course, Richard Osman's newest title, The Impossible Fortune, would be featured. So would the newest book by Nita Prose, The Maid's Secret, just because almost every book in those 2 series has been optioned. I think the only time Richard Osman wasn't optioned was the Thursday Murder Club. Maybe his sequel wasn't optioned, but he now is a Goodreads darling for sure, and same goes with Anita Prose. Vera Wong's Guide to Snooping on a Dead Man, that one is clearly going to make it because people have loved the first book, and the sequel is doing just as well with 4.2 average star rating, 42,000 ratings. I mean, come on. The next title I am of 2 minds about. I don't think it should be in a category for mystery, but I think Goodreads would, because Goodreads doesn't read, and also Goodreads doesn't know what a mystery is. We have found that very obvious because in all of their articles where they feature a mystery, like, oh, mysteries to read this summer or something, most of the list would be thrillers. And so I'm like, Goodreads doesn't know what a mystery is. So I think this book would be featured in the mystery category, and that is Holly Jackson's Not Quite Dead Yet. Now, this is her adult debut. She has been featured on the Goodreads Choice Awards before, but in the YA category. I think her YA books are deemed mystery, but this one, the tagline, like the first line in the synopsis, labels this a thriller. So, I mean, I don't think it's a mystery, but most people are shelving it under mystery more frequently than they're doing it with thriller. So I could be wrong, hence why I'm putting it in this mystery category. The next title is an example where, because the book is over 3.5 star ratings since the author was featured just last year, I think it's a shoo-in, even though people aren't nearly loving it as much as they did the first book, and that is How to Seal Your Own Fate by Kristen Perrin. This has a 3.68 star rating average, which isn't the worst on the list that I like. There are some that are quite low, but it's low enough where I'm like, clearly people aren't as enamored compared to the first book, but I do think that it would make the list as a veteran nominee. Same goes with Kills Well with Others by Deanna Raybourn. This is the sequel to Killers of a Certain Age. I don't really know if these are mystery books or if they're more quirky thrillers, just because we're following assassins, gray characters, and it just seems more like a fun romp than a puzzle to be solved. But I haven't read the series, and I do think that it probably would be placed in the mystery category to give more room for the darker, twistier thrillers that exist. I could just see Goodreads pulling that move. We Are All Guilty Here by Karen Slaughter. This is tough. I'm wondering if it's because it seems more like a suspense, and to me, suspense leans mystery. But one, Karen Slaughter is self-claimed as a thriller writer, and the title alone screams thriller because it uses a pronoun as the first word in the title, and it's a statement. I feel like so often when you could use a title as a full sentence, it's probably a thriller, but I could see the Goodreads Choice Awards trying to slot it in for a mystery as a mystery thriller because it's a genre blend, so it could go either way. Plus, there are so many other thrillers that really tend to make the mystery thriller list, and Karen Slaughter tends to make it every other or every 2 years. I could just see them kind of throwing it into the mystery category as a mystery thriller. And this is where some of my options get a little spicy, mainly because by creating a mystery category, we are giving more room to more titles being featured, and that includes historical mysteries that might have been shoved into the historical fiction category, but since they have a place in the mystery category now, we have more historical fictions that can be featured in general. Are you following what I'm saying? It opens more space in the historical fiction category by placing these A-plot mysteries set in a historical setting in a mystery category. The first book that I am going to be featuring in this is Marie Benedict's The Queens of Crime. The title alone and the fact that she is reimagining, fictionalizing Agatha Christie, Baroness Orczy, I'm pretty sure Dorothy L. Sayers and maybe Josephine Tey make their way into this story, and it is a historical mystery. Come on. These are the queens of crime who defined the mystery genre as it is today, helped mold it, and we have everything to thank them for. So it makes sense that it would be in the mystery category, even though it is a historical setting. Same goes with Kristen Harmel's newest title, The Stolen Life of Colette Marceau. I've heard from others that this is clearly a historical mystery. So I think that it just makes sense that because the A-plot is a mystery, it should be in the mystery category. But like I've said, genre blends have burned me before. The fact that The Tainted Cup would never be considered in the mystery thriller category, even though it is truly a Sherlockian reimagining. I'm happy it's in the fantasy category. I'm happy it was being represented, but that's one thing where I'm like, I mean, come on. This next one, I already regret putting it in there. I haven't started the book yet, but I do plan on starting it today, and I just don't know if it's mystery enough. That is Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaughey, another veteran nominee. Actually, every author I've mentioned is a veteran nominee, even if it wasn't in the mystery thriller category. For Charlotte McConaughey, she was featured in the fiction, general fiction category when her latest book was it When We Were Wolves? When There Were Wolves? That title was very popular and was in the fiction category. This one is described as cli-fi suspense, like a cli-fi mystery. So I'm putting it here, but it also just might be actually too popular. 182,000 ratings with a 4.14 average star rating. If it were featured in the mystery category, I think it would just win without a doubt, but I could be wrong on that. I don't know if it's mystery enough. And so part of me is like, maybe she should actually be put in the fiction category. And then I have 4 authors in a row that I think have been shafted or just missed in the Goodreads Choice Awards in the past because we've had to leave so much room for thriller writers. The first one is Anthony Horowitz. He came out with the 3rd book in the Susan Ryland series, Marble Hall Murders. The first book was The Magpie Murders. Everyone probably recognizes that title. And this one is super popular, 4.3 average star rating, nearly 20,000 ratings so far. He's an author that's just been missed, even though it's an award-winning series and every single book is super popular. They just never put him on the list. Another one is the Finlay Donovan series. Finlay Donovan Digs Her Own Grave. I don't know which book in the series this is, but it is also very popular, 32,000 star rating so far. And El Cosimano just has never been featured, even though a lot of people love the Finlay Donovan series. Same with Janice Hallett. Now, she tends to have later publication dates in the fall, which I think is why she never really gets enough ratings for anyone to really notice her in Goodreads. But The Killer Question has the tagline, "The answer is murder, the question is who done it." I'm really intrigued. I read The Examiner last year, which was a mystery thriller, and I enjoyed it. This one just came out the 23rd of September. So again, she tends to have later publication dates in September and October, making it really hard for her to gain enough recognition before the long list is announced. But this has a 4.16 average star rating. So, I mean, it definitely fits the qualifications. And then finally, when it comes to authors who've been in the mystery community for a long time, been publishing mysteries for a long time, another author that I have in mind is Ellie Griffiths. She just came out with The Frozen People, and it is a departure. This is a sci-fi travel, what am I saying? This is a time travel mystery, so it does involve sci-fi, but I do think it's one of those rare genre blends that would be placed in the mystery category before it's ever considered in its other genre. So I don't think sci-fi would really pick this up, but it is quite popular, 3.96 average star rating, 7,000 star rating, so not a lot, but I feel like with a mystery category, it it would have the room to be recognized. And the rest are just going to be rapid fire because I don't have the strongest reason for putting them on the list beyond that they're in good standing, they fit all the qualifications, and I feel like they're relatively popular to be placed in the mystery category. We have The Retirement Plan by Sue Hissenberg. I wouldn't deem this a mystery, but I think that Goodreads would. A Murder Takes a Vacation by Laura Lippman. The Witch's Orchard, I think, is probably going to be a hidden gem. It just came out in August, so it really hasn't made much traction, but I've only seen positive ratings with a 4.01 average star rating, and it looks really good. It looks suspenseful, so maybe a darker mystery, and I want to read it. The Unraveling of Julia by Lisa Scottoline. I think that she's a suspense writer who often gets labeled as a mystery thriller writer, and maybe she does lean a bit thriller, but I could see her making the mystery list. And then I have two that lean a bit more literary mystery, and I know people are going to be like, oh gosh, no. And I'm kind of with you, but I know that this happens with the sci-fi category a lot, that literary sci-fi takes up a good amount of that category. Not everyone's favorite fact, but it is something that happens. And so I did throw in my final two picks for this fake long list to be Jess Walter's So Far Gone. It's pretty popular, 13,000 ratings, nearly a 4.0 average star rating. And then What Kind of Paradise by Janelle Brown. That one has nearly 30,000 ratings with a 4.15 average star rating. I think that we could see a couple literary mysteries, literary suspense being thrown in, and that is my long list for the Goodreads Choice Awards if they were to have a mystery category. Am I happy with all the books on this list? No. But I think that shows that I was trying to be fair and putting on books on this Goodreads Choice Awards list that even if they aren't my favorite, or even some of these books I've DNF'd books in the series, I acknowledge, though, that they're very popular, and so I tried to provide a list that would be representative of the most popular books across all mystery readers. If I missed any titles, let me know. I'm sure there were a couple really big ones that just missed my radar, and I'd love to see them in the comments so you can help me adjust this prediction list of a fake mystery category. And now is the time for us to transition into Leandra's Choice Awards, my own long list of 20 titles. I do have some overlap. There's a couple books that were featured in the Goodreads long list that I created, and so I will make sure to feature those very quickly so you know where we're at, and then I'll do a bit more of a deep dive into the titles that I've chosen for myself and why. Starting with the repeat titles, there's The Maid's Secret by Nita Prose, Vera Wong's Guide to Snooping on a Dead Man. I also included The Killer Question by Janice Hallett, The Marble Hall Murders by Anthony Horowitz, The Queens of Crime by Marie Benedict, as well as Kristen Harmel's The Stolen Life of Colette Marceau. I've also added The Frozen People by Ellie Griffiths. And that's it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 titles have been repeated. Have I read any of them? No. But the ones that are series, I have read at least one book in the series, and some of the other titles I'm just really intrigued by and feel as though they fit my type of reading style when I'm looking for a mystery to read. Next are the titles that I have read this year that were published in 2025, and I absolutely adored them. The first one is A Case of Mice and Murder by Sally Smith. This is a historical mystery that was set in 1901. It's a legal mystery, and I just think it's really well done. It's one of my best mysteries of the year. A Drop of Corruption by Robert Jackson Bennett, and that should confirm to you that there are more genre blends to come. This is just the only one that I've read, and it, like I said, this is a Sherlockian reimagining set in a fantasy world. That's what the series is. It should clearly be featured in the mystery category as well, and it's being featured in mine. Another book I absolutely devoured was A Terribly Nasty Business by Julia Seals. This one was such a delight. It is a satire, makes fun of the Regency era while also having a compelling mystery plot. I also liked A Most Agreeable Murder, the first book in that series, but I think I liked the second one better. The Rushworth Family Plot by Claudia Gray. It is the 4th installment in the Juliet Tilney and Jonathan Darcy mystery series, Jane Austen reimagined with murder mystery plots, and I've given most of the books in this series 5 stars. This 4th one I gave a 4.5, still really high marks. For me, I think that there wasn't as much time dedicated to the mystery plot, the puzzle, finding clues, but it all still wrapped up really nicely in the end. And the final book that is on my personalized long list that I have read is A Murder for Miss Hortense by Mel Pennant. I don't think this book has received its flowers yet, and maybe it's because it's not being targeted to the right type of reader. readership. It's being described as like a cozy mystery. At least people are assuming it's cozy mystery a la Miss Marple, or, you know, comparing it to other cozy reads. And even though there is some comforting elements to it, it's a dark mystery. We are experiencing some severe, deep-rooted crimes, some cold cases, a serial killer. It's not something that is for those who are squeamish or don't want to deal with darker topics. And so I think that's why the average star rating is a lot lower than I personally think it deserves if it found its appropriate audience. Set in a community with Jamaican immigrants who have been there for decades, building their own community, building their own wealth, and supporting each other. One of its founding members, in a way, has been murdered, and now Miss Hortense, among others, have to figure out who murdered this woman and why, and it's linked to crimes that occurred decades earlier. 12 books down, 8 to go, and most of the titles I'll be introducing next are books that are a part of a series that I've started and I really intend to continue. I just haven't gotten to this particular book yet. Big Bad Wool by Leonie Swan. This is the sequel to 3 Bags Full. Now, these books were originally published in German and they have been translated into English. If I'm remembering correctly, Big Bad Wool, this is the first time it's ever been published in English. If that's not the case, it wouldn't qualify for the Goodreads Choice Awards because that's another kind of muddy water area when we're considering translations. But this is Leandra's Choice Awards, so I don't care. This republication, this English edition came out in 2025 in the United States, and I'm counting it no matter what. The main characters are sheep. They are a flock, and in the first book, they are trying to solve the murder of their shepherd. It's a delightful time. It's amazing. It's so funny and such a fresh perspective on the mystery genre. Mirage City by Lev A.C. Rosen. This has a really new publication date, like the 7th of October, so really not many people have even been rating it, but it's the 4th book in the Evander Mills mystery series. The first book, Lavender House, I gave 5 stars, and I'm just dying to get back to the series. It's really well done. Historical mystery set in 1950s San Francisco, following a gay detective, and I think it's really important. It adds a fresh take on the historical mystery scene while providing necessary diversity. Another 4th in the series is the Silversmith's Puzzle by Nev March. The first book in the series is Murder in Old Bombay, and it follows Jim Agnihotri, a private detective. I think it's really well done. It's another historical mystery series that spans various countries, starting in the British Raj, going to Chicago, America, and so forth. And this is just a really good series that I also need to get back to, so I'm adding it to my own Choice Awards list because it's another book that I think needs more people reading because it's a great series in general. The last historical mystery on the list, I promise, and another 4th in the series, which is crazy, is Tom Mead's newest title, The House at Devil's Neck. This is the 4th book in the Joseph Spector mystery series set in 1930s London, impossible crimes, an homage to the golden age of detective fiction, and it's really well plotted. It's really enjoyable, a bingeable series. I think each book I've read in a matter of days, and this 4th book I have had on my TBR. Still haven't gotten to it, but maybe I'll pick it up this winter. Buckle up, because the next few titles I'll be featuring are indeed genre blends. The first one I'll feature is The Potency of Ungovernable Impulses by Malka Older. It is a series known for its long, complicated titles. This is a sci-fi mystery series that is a Sherlockian reimagining. It is Massa and Plady, our Sherlock and Watson characters. It's also a sapphic romance series. There's a lot going on. They're novellas though, so they really do pack everything into these tiny little packages. I've enjoyed the series, haven't loved it, but I find it fascinating what Malka Older has done to the Sherlock canon, and I do want to read this next book in the series. Infinite Archive by Merla Furdy. This is the 3rd book in, what is the series called? The Mid-Solar Murders mystery series. The first book is Station Eternity, the second one is Chaos Terminal, and now we have Infinite Archive, and I really enjoyed this. Now this one truly is Miss Marple in space. It is a cozy mystery series, and I really enjoyed the first book and I need to continue. And I mean, this 3rd book has so many cats on the cover. What does that mean? I'll find out soon, hopefully. And the final genre blend that I have on this list is The Tomb of Dragons by Catherine Addison. This is the 3rd and final installment in the Cemeteries of Amalo series. It is a fantasy mystery series following an elf who is our sleuth. I ended up reading The Witness for the Dead earlier this year, a couple months ago, and I've got Grief of Stones on my TBR because I want to continue the series so badly. This one is really well done, really well plotted, and definitely kind of lends itself to almost like Victorian Victorian mystery, Golden Age mystery in style. In the first book, Witness for the Dead, we even had a bit of a nod to a classic true crime case, Brides in the Bath. So you can tell that Catherine Addison knows her mystery plots, and she just sets it in this very rich fantasy world. I think it's going to end up being one of my all-time favorite series. And if I'm counting correctly, we're at 19 books. The final book I'm adding to the list is one that I've been meaning to read just because I think that the plot is up my alley. That is 10 Marchfield Square. This is by Nicola White, and I have the audio. I just have never actually picked up the title. This is set in an apartment building, and we have a bit of a Scooby Gang scenario where a couple of the neighbors, the landlord, are trying to investigate a crime that happened in their building. It's very much giving Only Murders in the Building, that TV show that's super popular, so I feel like I'll really enjoy it once I eventually get to it. Now, some of you might be noticing that really popular authors aren't on my own Choice Awards list. Richard Osman, Kristen Perrin, as well as El Casamano. That is because those three main series that I've featured in the Goodreads Choice Awards, I've DNF'd at some point, meaning that it makes no sense for me to put them on my own personalized long list for this mystery category. You also might be wondering, Leandra, most of these books on your long list aren't books that you've actually read, which is fair. But in 2025, I simply haven't read enough new mystery releases to make up a top 20 long list where every single book on this awards list is something I've read. Last year, in 2024, crazy enough, I could have made a top 20 of all the mysteries that I read that came out in 2024, but this has just been a different reading year. And so that's why most of the books on this list are continuations of series I want to get to. So I can kind of say, yes, I've loved previous books in that series, or they're just really intriguing to me and they seem like they're up my alley based on my own reading tastes. I had fun either way. I hope that you enjoyed this process, and like I said before, be sure to let me know in the comments any big titles I missed, or let me know your own thoughts about mysteries and thrillers being forced together every single year when we get to the Goodreads Choice Awards. And if you're not feeling chatty, how about in honor of the mystery category, provide me with any emojis in the comments that are mystery in theme, that make you think of the mystery genre. And I hope to see everybody in the next one. Bye, everybody!